Hello, everyone, and welcome back to today's episode of the Bikini and the Brain podcast. I am here joined with Adam Bonilla from TeamElitePhysique.com.
Hello.
And my name is Ashley Kaltwasser, and we are thrilled to be your podcast host today.
That was a magnificent introduction, Ashley.
Thanks. I haven't been practicing.
So today's podcast is about bro science versus actual science, debunking some myths, and we're also live. So if any of you want to give us some of your questions about that, please keep them coming, and we will address some of them on there. But before we go into this podcast, we do have to talk about USAs that happened this weekend. We also had Masters Nationals that happened last weekend.
Lots to get caught up on.
I've been all over, and this weekend I get to relax a little bit. We do have the Tampa Pro going on this weekend.
But nobody here is.
Just Jacqueline is there.
Oh,
Jacqueline
okay.
Lucia. Yeah,
Go Jacqueline.
Yeah. She's doing the Masters and maybe the Open on Saturday. The Masters on Thursday, so we're peaking. So
okay.
So it'll be fun.
Exciting times. We're like
Dude,
right smack in the middle of the competition season. I'm getting the FOMOs really bad.
Yeah, poor Ashley.
Really
She wants to compete again.
I know. Every time I see a show, I'm like, dang it, what if I was there?
Yeah.
What if?
But we'll have some news for you soon, guys. We'll have some news for you soon. So how soon? I don't know.
Yeah, we're not telling anybody.
It's under lock.
Yes, super secret, top secret stuff.
I have it. I do know it. I keep it in a file in a briefcase, handcuffed to me 24/7.
Exactly. Yep.
It's like the secret recipe at KFC. You know that they have the secret recipe at KFC, like they carry it like that?
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty, it gets... That's pretty awesome. So, I mean, they do make good chicken. I'm not gonna lie. So last weekend we had, we had a pro at Universe, we had a pro at Masters, and then we had another pro at USA's this weekend. So,
Holy schmolies.
Hey,
we're doing pretty okay, huh?
Doing okay, yeah. And Miss Ashley helped with Asia's prep, who got her pro card. She was one off Miss USA, but she got her pro card Saturday.
Yep, she won her height class.
H
height class H, which is really tall. Gosh, we're killing it with the tall girls lately, huh? We had 3 Team Elite Physique athletes, and the first call out for H class in the USA, which is pretty incredible.
That's crazy.
Why are we so good at the tall girls?
This time it was 50% of the first call out. It was which at a national show is like impossible, especially when we had like such a small. We didn't have like a big crew there. That was crazy. Yeah, no, that's crazy. I don't know if I've ever had 3 people in a first call out at a national show ever. Yeah, I think that's a first for me, which is pretty cool. It's always nice. I've had 2 for sure, but I don't think I've had 3. So that's pretty cool. Good job, Coach Ashley.
Good job, Coach Adam.
I mean, that was great. Yeah, she was so close to that overall title, but congrats to the new overall Miss USA. So we have a new pro, and we'll probably be seeing her pretty soon too. She's excited, and she wants to be an active pro just like you.
Don't they all, Don't they all?
That is true. That is true.
Kidding,
We'll have to see how it pans out. But
it's a joke, guys.
She does want to be active, so we'll see. I think she's got good potential, good future. So anyway, that being said, today's podcast we talked about bro science versus actual science. Okay, so this is going to be a good one because we talk about there is some times where the bros are right. Yep. And it's funny is sometimes science will catch up and they'll do like the testing of what the bros already figured out like 10 years earlier. And then sometimes the science debunks what the bros think is right.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're right, but it's not right for the right reasons that they think they're right.
Yeah, totally.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, there is like this little gap of knowledge where like we've discussed before, like they don't test it on athletes like us. Right. They'll test it on like college students and do all these studies. But let's be honest, they're not like us. Yeah. Like we're doing something unique, and it's hard to capture a study that would, host athletes that are doing this particular, diet and training and all that stuff. So that, I think there is sometimes that little gray area. It's like, well, the study says this, but we've tried this before and this works. So, I think there is some occasions where it does make sense and does work for competitive athletes that are in physique sports, but not necessarily for college students where you don't know if they're actually cheating on their diet or not, because sometimes we can't even get athletes to stick with their diet, and they're training for a show, let alone college students. You tell them to eat a certain thing. I don't know if I trust it. So,
that is true, right?
Yeah, it's like you can't,
and
they're getting paid for it too, but it's like, listen, it's
adherence to the diet.
Adherence, but I guess with what isn't like controlled studies more of a, like they're paying attention to everything and they watch and monitor 24/7.
I mean, they're thought to be more accurate in foods like generally laid out for them, and this is what they get to eat given type of thing in a lot of studies. So yeah, I mean, but you are right. I mean, the snack is still a snack, and they're not like on lock. They're not in jail.
Yeah, no one's like they don't got a camera on them 24/7.
Yeah, so that is true.
Like, you think they're not going to go out on the weekend because they're a part of the study? Come on.
Yeah, you got to you do have to think some of them are getting paid for it. So it's like for them, it's just like a side gig, getting some extra coins. So they're kind of adhering to it, and I guess you could probably think about that too. I don't know how that would. I don't know. I've never been part of it in terms of it being a person in it, how serious they take it. But you're probably right.
So I've got a question before we really get into it. Does your shirt have anything to do with our topic today?
No.
Non-toxic?
I'm just a non-toxic kind of guy. It's kind of an if you know scenario.
Well, I actually don't know. So, okay. Well, I guess I won't know.
Probably get some
not until after the podcast.
I'll tell you after. It's great.
Okay.
But I'm non-toxic, Ashley.
Well, that's good to know.
I'm non-toxic, literally and figuratively.
Well, that's amazing.
That's so funny. So anyway, with the bro science versus actual science, what's our first one you have here?
So, I've got a nice little list of things that I hear, things that I actually still see, and some things that, there might be a half truth to, and some things that actually have no, I guess, proven study, but we know as from being in the industry we are that, hey, it actually kind of does work, So the first thing that I have to mention, because I still hear this, it's crazy. That competitors will purposely switch to fish close to a show because apparently they were told it thins your skin.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. Actually, to give them, the people who don't know, how many fishes have you eaten in your life?
0. I think I tried like a half of a fish stick once in grade school, and this is where it probably all stems from. I tried half a fish stick and I started gagging and like I threw up in the cafeteria.
Really?
Because it was so gross. And then like on fish stick day, like I couldn't even be in the cafeteria because the fish smell was so bad, and I would just gag and I wouldn't even eat my food. And then like, so yeah.
She's
no fish. No seafood either. No seafood.
Yeah, no seafood for Ashley. No to the extreme. We were in Japan and the sushi was so good. And I almost felt like bad for her to not eat a piece of Japanese sushi because it's like, it's Japan. You got to do it. And then we went in there and she couldn't even like sit in there. The smell was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely more fishier than other places.
That place was pretty fishy.
And let me just make this clear. I've definitely gave it a go, later in life because I realized, things that you found to be gross as a child, your taste buds evolve. And, throughout the years, I definitely gave it a go a few times. Like, well, maybe if I cook it this way or try, nope. Even like I'd go out to eat with people or at a sushi restaurant and they'd be like, no, just try it. It tastes just like chicken. And I'd put my tongue on it and I'd be like, nope, no, it doesn't. You're lying. Nope, no. So no seafood.
That's like
nothing.
me. That's like me with alcohol. I have like people always trying to get me to drink different drinks. Like, oh, you just haven't tried the right one, this and that. Yeah. I'm like, no, I can taste it on all of them. I don't like. I know for me, it's weird. It's almost like my man card's pulled. I just don't like the taste of it.
Yeah.
And I don't like the calories where it started, but then I don't like the taste of it too. And so people are like, oh, just try this. You just trying the wrong. I'm like, no, dude, you could clearly taste that it's in anything, no matter how you mask it. I don't know. I just really don't like the taste of alcohol. So that's funny. So I could see where you're coming from if it's like that with you.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the fish one, this is a funny one because so first off, this is one where the bodybuilders are wrong, but they're right. Right. And I'll explain why.
The half truth or whatever.
Yeah. I'll explain why they're right. And it's funny. So a lot of this comes from, do you have this would be a good example. Do you have milk on there? Like can't drink milk as one of them, or no?
No, but we can add it on there.
Yeah, let's add it on there. Okay. So let's take it way back to like Arnold's days, right? And bodybuilding way back then. So one of the other ones is you can't have dairy on a prep diet. So you have to ask, okay, why and where, right? I'm always that guy, that why and where guy. I think that's the important thing is you guys got to ask why. You can't just take like blanket statements and not, always just trust the process. So I don't mind, answering the questions when I get the questions, as long as it doesn't become like a professor-student relationship. I'm like, this isn't a course. I'm still a coach or the athlete, right? But I'll go over minor explanations till it gets too crazy where they're like, what's the reason for this? What's the reason? Like, this is not a course. This is coach-athlete. Coach says do, athlete does type of scenario, But on here, I'll take the questions. But when you go into the milk thing, it's like, okay, so why is there no milk on a diet? Well, back in Arnold's days, they would say to grow, and even actually you can watch Pumping Iron movie. If you guys have never watched Pumping Iron, you should watch it. It's awesome because Arnold's like in his prime, and he's just a funny guy. He's like an old school troll too. Like he's such a troll back then. It's so great. He's like trolling Lou Ferrigno. He's like, they already told me I won. Like the day before the Olympia. He's just so funny. Like he's such a awesome dude back then. But anyway, so back then, even in the video, they're like, how do you get so big? And he's like, well, drink milk, right? I drank milk. He's like, why do you think babies go from this big to this big in like a year, right? He's like, I drank milk, right? So I don't know if he was trolling or that's actually bodybuilding community, but in the bodybuilding world back then, they drank milk as like a weight gainer, right? Because milk was super dense in calories, and they knew that, there was no studies or anything like that done, but they knew, okay, drinking milk helps get you bigger because the calories were there because they didn't have skim milk. So they had just whole milk back then. So they drank whole milk, and they would use those extra calories. And it was almost like a weight gainer. It had protein in it. Remember, they didn't have pure whey protein back then either. So they had to eat all their food through, liquid or foods like milk or foods, whole proteins. So they said, okay, gaining weight, you drink milk. And then when you're leaning out for a show, you don't drink milk anymore. That was like part of a prep, right? But then somehow that carried on for like 60 more years, and people are still like, you can't drink milk anymore for prep, even though they make non-fat milk now. They make skim milk. So actually you could still have milk on your diet all the way through. So then that went from being milk to being full dairy. Oh, you can't have dairy on your diet either. But we'd have Greek yogurt on our diet all the way till like the last week before the show sometimes. I mean, sometimes I don't cut dairy till like Monday or Tuesday before the show on people's peak week diets. And we just do that just in case it, maybe you're not digesting it well. Maybe you're just have a very slight intolerance to dairy. And so we cut that just as a just in case. We do a lot of things that probably don't need to do, but it's just like as a just in case the last week before the show. Okay, so that's where the dairy one came from. So can you have milk on a diet for prep? Yes, absolutely. Am I super cautious at the end, and do I cut it? Yes. Okay, so how does the fish one fall into play on that? It's a similar scenario. What happens is people are doing chicken on their diet. They're doing chicken the whole time through, and they're doing, different types of chickens, and they're doing all these different meats, red meats that have more fats in it, whatnot. And then they want to get to that last bit of body fat. They want to get to that last little bit. So what do? They say, okay, start doing tilapia now because that thins your skin. So it's not that it thins your skin, it's that you reduce your fat content from your protein sources. And when you have less fat consumption, you have less calories, and that caused you to lose more body fat, which gives the appearance that your skin is thinner, but really your skin is just closer to the muscle because there's less fat. And there's less fat because you had less calories, because you have less fats in your proteins. It's very simple. So that's where that all came through. And then the other thing that it came through with was like your waistline. So fish has no correlation with the thickness of your skin. It's just how much leaner you're getting because you basically eliminated your fats at a certain point entirely. And fats have 9 calories per gram. So it's the most calorie dense macronutrient there is, versus a protein that has only 4 calories per gram. So if you went from, let's say you're a bodybuilder, you went from like 6 ounces of red meat to 6 ounces of fish, you basically knocked off probably like 12 grams of fat, or like, 9 to 12 grams of fat, or like a decently lean meat. That's a lot of calories. That's, they're talking close to 100 calories there in that scenario off of every meal for, let's say 4 of your meals per day. So that's 400 calorie reduction. That's where your skin got thinner. Mm-hmm. And you can look at this from areas which are, areas that have high fish eating content, right? We just talked about Japan, right? If in Japan, they have, Korea where they're too, they eat a lot of fish. They have really great skin. Honestly, probably the best skin on the planet is in Korea and Japan, right? Like the girls are really these beautiful complexions and thick skin, and it seems
supple,
skin. Yeah, it seems like Asian people as a culture just tend to age slower than like everyone, right? Like so
jealous.
So as if you look at people who like if it was, Japan and all they eat is fish or mostly eat fish, and back in the day they really ate a lot of fish, how come their skin isn't just falling off of them now, right? Because
or see-through, or
why can't you see their bones through their skin? Because their skin should be as thin as possible since they've been on a fish diet. Or how come pescatarians don't have like the thinnest skin, right? So it's that just debunks that whole thing. I mean, it doesn't make any sense,
Totally. So like an easy fix would be like if you really, really wanted to go low fat and like you still want to eat chicken, just eliminate that tablespoon of peanut butter or something. Like there's ways around it. Like it doesn't have to be. So do you think then even the leanest of lean chicken, or there's a way to cook chicken to get to the same amount of leanness as the, let's say, tilapia or the lean fish?
You can get the 99% ground turkey, and you get the 99% ground chicken they have too. So the chicken has 1 ounce of fat, or 1 gram of fat per ounce, even a chicken breast for the most part. So you're going to get, let's say 4 ounces of chicken breast, you're going to get 4 ounces, you're going to get 4 grams of fat, versus like a tilapia or a 99% ground turkey, you're going to get like 1.5 grams of fat. So there is an exchange there too for that. It's not a huge one. It's, 2.5 grams, 3 grams of fat. But that's 27 calories times 4 meals, 5 meals. That's, it's 125 calories or so.
So just eliminate that tablespoon of peanut butter.
There you go. Yeah. and like there's other people who do. So like Kimber, for example, she does lean ground turkey, like 100%, like 99% lean ground turkey. And then she just saves her fat so that way she can have a tablespoon of peanut butter. Because like to her, she's like, I'd rather have 99% ground, lean ground turkey and then have a tablespoon of nut butter versus just eating chicken and have that, like you can't even taste the fat in there, which is another argument for people who maybe you struggle with your diet. Maybe you switch to the low fat and then have the fats in another way. So it's more satiating for you and easier for you to stay on your diet. So there's that too, which is actually a nice little hack there,
Yeah, there you go. So the next one we'll move on to, and oh my gosh, I still cannot believe this still happens. And we talk about this so much. So I feel like a broken record. The idea that you need to intentionally bulk in the off season. And in fact, I ran across a girl just recently too. And she told me like that her coach intentionally wanted her to put on 25 pounds in the off season. And keep in mind, she's a small girl. We're talking probably like 4'10". Like,
wow, really?
And she was telling me, she's like, yeah, I actually really don't even, I feel like I'm forcing myself and I really don't feel comfortable being this fluffy, but my coach says I need to. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, it still happens. I cannot believe it still happens. It's crazy because it's like setting yourself up for disaster when you go to prep. You're not going to be as good as you would have been. But that's insane, especially if it's like, it'd still be bad if like an athlete enjoyed eating that much and didn't mind it looking like that. But she specifically mentioned like, I don't even like eating that much, but I have to. It's like, whoa, that blows my mind. And I can understand, like, I've done this before too, but we're talking like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So like, I just can't believe that even still now with all the information out there, this still happens and people still believe it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think going into like the actual science of it, because again, bro science versus actual science, one of the things that you need to look at is so as a bodybuilder, bikini competitor, whatever you are, we have to not look at the scale and get excited. That's the thing. Because we get excited in both directions. We get excited when we lose. We get excited when we gain. And I remember being a young bodybuilder when I was bulking. I was like, 20 years ago at this point. But when I was bulking, I was like, trying to gain 1.5 pounds like every week. It's ridiculous, But I was like, I'm up to 200 pounds. And you're like, you look like soft. It's like 200 pounds and you put on 20 pounds of fat to get there. And you're like all proud that you hit the 200 pound scale. I remember like when I was like 195, like I just wanted to rush it that week and just put on like 5 pounds that week. Like I was like, do whatever I got to do to just be 200 pounds tomorrow morning, like a raw 200 pounds weight before I drink any water type of thing. And it was like, it's just so dumb because you get excited with it. And we're guilty of it on both sides of going down and going up. We're guilty on both sides of it. And really it's the measurements and the net weight from show to show what makes the difference. And so we have to look at your net weight, not your off-season weight, as a marker for success. And so as soon as you change your kind of your concept of what the successful off-season is, and it's from your stage to stage weight, then you're going to be a lot less inclined to chase the numbers in the off-season. And what I mean by that is, okay, I'm going to we'll use a bikini competitor, for example. Okay, so let's say you're 125 pounds on stage and you nailed your stage conditioning. You don't need to get any leaner, and you just need to get back to that stage condition the next time, which is, there's quite a few. It might take you a few times to nail your stage conditioning. But for example, like Ashley, she's nailed her stage conditioning, 20 times probably. So we know where the marker is for that much muscle for her to have. So what we're not concerned with is Ashley going up to 140 in the off season and like, hey, let's get you up to 140. Let's get you up to 150. What we're worried about is, okay, next time you're on stage in that shape, maybe you can weigh 126 and a half. That'd be cool. You'd be up 1.5 pounds of muscle. That's a lot of muscle for someone with your petite structure. So we're not concerned with the off season just gaining. We're concerned with stage to stage weight, concerned with net weight, hitting the same conditioning. Did we make improvements? Did we gain 1 pound of muscle? That's the important thing. So if it only takes, and I'll give you 2 examples, if you gain pure lean mass with you're always going to gain a little body fat from the show. There's just no way kind of around that, to be honest. So let's say she goes to 130, right, in the off season. And I'm going to use really low numbers because Ashley, that is a pretty typical thing for Ashley. Ashley stays pretty lean because she competes so much and she just likes staying lean and aerodynamic.
Efficient. Yes.
So,
yes, exactly. Light on my feet. Gliding when I walk.
Yes. Ashley is a Lamborghini of people.
There we go.
Aerodynamics.
Yeah.
Air just flows around her.
Yeah.
I'm a bus. So zero wind resistance. I'm like, I'm not slow. I'm just not as wind resistant, Ashley. That's not fair when we race. I'm not engineered the same. I say that when I'm weak, I'm saying, man, weights are heavy today. Something gravitational must be happening. like it's not me. It must be something lunar or something going on.
Exactly. Your stars are not properly aligned.
Yeah, like something weird going on with the planets right now. So I forgot what we were talking about. Oh, net weight. Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look. All right. So let's say you gained 20 pounds in the off season, and then you gained with that 20 pounds. We're taking females into account. Males, you probably add numbers to this. But let's say you gained 20 pounds, you did a real bulk, and in bikini, 20-pound bulk is quite a bit for an average 120 pounder. If you're 5'10", you're on stage 140-ish, maybe that would be like 30 pounds to you or 28 pounds to you, something like that. So she gains 20 pounds, and out of those 20 pounds, let's say 5 of those are muscle, right? Okay, cool. So she gained 5 pounds of muscle and 15 pounds of fat. Well, now she needs to lose 15 pounds of fat to get there again. Okay, so she needs to diet harder than if she were to try to lose only 5 pounds of fat. I think everyone can be in agreement that you're going to have to diet harder to lose 15 pounds of fat than you will to lose 5 pounds of fat. Everyone can agree on that. So when you're dieting harder, you're going to lose more lean mass. The longer you diet, the more lean mass you're going to lose. All right, so at the end of losing those 15 pounds of fat, she nets 3 pounds of muscle. Okay, so she lost 2 pounds of lean mass. She nets 3 pounds of muscle out of her 5 that she gained, right? So from stage to stage, she gained 3 pounds of lean mass. That'd be a very successful off season, right? We'd be super stoked with that. Now, on the other side of it, Ashley gained, let's say 10 pounds or 8 pounds, something more realistic, right? She gained 10 pounds, but she only gained, let's say 4 pounds or 3.5 pounds of lean mass out of those 10. Well, now she still needs to lose 6 pounds, 6.5, right? Well, at the end of her losing those 6.5 pounds, she lost 0.5 pound of lean mass and nets only 3 pounds of lean mass. You netted the same amount of lean mass in both scenarios. Did you maximize how much muscle you could gain in the offseason by bulking? Yes. I don't think anyone's going to deny that either, because you had ample calorie supply the entire time versus staying lean while doing it. You had ample calorie supply most of the time, right? So you're going to get most of the gains, but not all of the gains in that scenario. So yes, in a bulking scenario, you're going to maximize every single opportunity you have to gain as much lean mass, but you're also going to lose more muscle because you're dieting harder for a longer period of time. So it's not, there's no, juice without a squeeze, right? So your lean mass that you gained is always going to suffer for how long you're dieting, right? So it's always, you got to find that proper exchange, right? How long do I want to diet? How long do I want to suffer? Do I need to diet harder now? Do I not even going to want to do this for long periods of time? My conclusion of this scenario is leaning more towards staying leaner on the show and kind of loosened up a tiny bit where, being realistic at the same time. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. There's guys that are a little bit more hardcore than me, but I'm probably known for keeping everyone lean in the off season. It's funny because I went to a dinner after USA's and I was with my buddy and he was like, we had like 5 of our athletes there and everyone was like eating lean at sushi. And he's like, man, he's like, you got these girls like trained. I'm like, dude, we stay lean in the off season. They're still enjoying themselves. They're eating calories. They're eating stuff outside. They're having like one big roll and the rest is like sashimi type rolls and stuff, but they're not going crazy because like they have goals, we have good example. You lead by example with Ashley. And it's like, they stay lean and they're worried about the net lean gains, not just blowing up after a show and eating like crazy. They might have one piece of pizza, not a whole pizza, things like that. So, so that's my conclusion on that has been, in the net, I can keep girls longer. I can keep girls way longer if they stay lean competing.
Yeah.
Girls who bulk and cut, those are the ones you see, oh my gosh, those girls drive me crazy too. Like those are the ones that, and it's not that
stressful, man.
It's not that they drive me crazy while they're doing it. Everyone needs to kind of find their own way to find their way,
Right.
And that's fine. I'm totally understanding of that. If you're one of those girls who put on 30 pounds, like it happens. The ones that drive me crazy are the ones that are like, competing ruined my relationship with food and competing did this. And I'm like, no, you had a bad relationship with food before you started competing. And that's probably why you started competing, because you were already super hyper focused on your body, which we all are. I am. I'm not above that. I whatever type of morphia you want to call it. I've had that since I was a kid. I don't think there's anything wrong with it though. I can embrace it. I think that people want to label anything these days as something that's not the norm, and everyone wants to put you in the bucket of anything that goes outside of the bucket of just sitting there like a slob being bad, And that's the problem, is that everything is like bucketed now. Anything that's excellent is bucketed. You're extreme. You work too much. You're lean. Oh, you need to eat a hamburger. You're dieting too hard. Oh, you're lean. You're watching what you eat. Oh, well, you have anorexia or you have body dysmorphia. Oh, you got muscles and you like working out. You don't think you're big. Oh, you got a problem. Like everyone's like, no, I'm just not normal, and that's okay. Yeah. You came up with those terms to make me feel bad about myself for striving for excellence, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that I hate, is the girls who like had a problem and they gained 30 pounds like right after a show, and they're like, competing did this to me. And I'm like, no, you would have gone that route anytime you dieted, whether it was competing or not. Yeah. There's no reason that you should have been gaining 50 pounds. And they're like, embrace it, embrace this, and like this. And they're like,
yeah, they try to sugarcoat it. I see that online too.
It's so annoying. I'm like,
it's like balance. This is balance. Yeah. It's not balance.
Yeah.
Well,
don't tell me you're happier being 50 pounds overweight than you were when you were shredded. Yeah, maybe with your food consumption, because you're just eating
for
whatever you want.
5 minutes. Yeah, when you're eating the
but don't tell me it's better to have rolls than abs. I will disagree on that, because I've had abs. I don't have rolls now, and I would rather have abs than I have like being like average fit right now, because I would say I'm average fit. I have a slight bit of abs with the right lighting and a squinted eye.
A squinted eye.
Yeah. That's how I like to keep it.
And
like
spray tan.
The spray tan I got better than a squinted eye of abs. You could open both eyes with the spray.
Okay.
A little bit of expel and a spray tan. I'm all right. A diet week. That's when it comes to like the Arnold and the Olympia week. I'm like, all right, I'll diet for like this week. Like every year, I'm like, I'm gonna diet for like 4 months, go hard and like do it. And then I'm like, nah, a couple of weeks. I'm not gonna take my shirt off. What do I care?
Yeah, you diet for your cheeks or something. Cheek diet.
What's really funny is every like Olympia, or even like, I didn't have it this year at USA's, but like every Olympia, the Olympia men's physique guys, I'm friends with a lot of them, and they're always like, hey, we're all gonna go to the pool, and then I'm like, you just did the Olympia, dude. I don't want to go to the pool with you. Like, I never feel out of shape, but I'm really gonna feel out of shape at that pool party. Like, sure, guys, you in the top 20. Let's just go there.
Oh my,
so funny.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, any more to add on to that, Ashley?
No, I mean, I think I'm a horrible representative to say this, I guess, because I do realize I stay leaner than most in the off season. And I'm not even saying you have to stay as lean as me in the off season. Guess what, guys? I'm in the off season right now. Did you know? Could you tell? But you couldn't.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is you don't have to do it to this level. Like, I realize my goals are a little different than most, maybe just because of the frequency of which I compete. So and like Adam said, I prefer to be leaner. I really do. And I'm not a big eater. I'm not a big eater, and I'm not really missing out. It's been kind of, I've been going below the calories that were given to me.
We just went over her check-in right now, and it was 2,100 calories in her meal plan. She's like, I just messed up a couple of days. I think I ate like 1,600 like 3 days last week. I couldn't get it all in.
I don't have the biggest appetite, and I realize that. So, you don't have to do it exactly like me, but, just try to keep it in check. And even if that means just sending check-ins to your coach, or even for yourself, if you don't have one right now, like, hold yourself accountable. And it's going to be tough to sometimes do that. Every Monday, take your pictures, weight measurements, because I feel like if you don't hold yourself accountable and track it, it might happen before your eyes. And then when you do check in, you'll be like, whoa, I didn't realize I put on that much weight. I didn't realize, which I think is hard. When you're in the winter, it's even more difficult to understand how much weight you're gaining because you're wearing bigger clothes and you don't want to get in a bikini. So you might not even be aware of how much you're gaining. But I think it's important to just keep things in check.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I've had friends and I've had a lot of, when I was doing more in-person training, I had a lot of people would start training because they saw their pictures and didn't realize it.
Yeah. It's like a wake-up call.
Yeah. This one guy, he told me the story. He was at a beach vacation with his family. And then there was a picture of him and with his kids. He was going through the pictures. These were like, I've been training since, people would print out their pictures with like disposable cameras and stuff, which is pretty funny. And he brought him in and he was like, yeah, he's like, this picture is the one that got me here because I saw this guy with my kids and I was like, who's this guy with my kids? Like I didn't even know it was me. And then I was like, I showed it to my wife and I was like, who's this? Who is this? Like, she was like, honey, that's you. Like, that's you. And then he was so shocked that he looked like that. And I was like joking with him. I was like at our work, I was like, come on, man, got to push hard. That camera adds 40 pounds. Like joke. I always mess with him. But it's kind of crazy because I can't imagine, I never really fluctuated that much. So I can't imagine being in that scenario. But I mean, it does sneak up on you, that quickly if you don't do those things. So me personally, I keep a scale in my bathroom. I check it probably once a week, make sure it doesn't get too crazy or anything like that. I stay within like a 10-pound marker. I'm actually right now I'm 184. I competed about 172 was when I was competing. So, I'm like 12 pounds above if I really wanted to go for it, being very lean. And I think that that's very realistic to keep in the off season. I still have a meal once a week. I just watch what I eat. It's nothing crazy, not doing any crazy cardio or anything like that. So I feel like there's a good balancing point for everyone. I'm not genetically at a place where I would say I'm gifted at all. I definitely store body fat pretty easily. So I think if I could do that and I'm not doing that much cardio, I'm just watching my diet, I'm still having something here and there. I feel like most people can do it. I think it's just a post-show month or two where people lose it, and they're just like, they just need to eat everything,
Yeah. Calorie sponge at that point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm not going through those fluctuations either because of the rapid weight gains and stuff that you have. Mm-hmm. So
totally.
So what's our next one we got on the agenda? And keep those questions coming in, guys, on the lives. Yes, we had a couple of them. Go for it, Ashley. What are we up to?
Okay. So during peak week, as a bikini athlete, I still see some girls doing like cutting sodium bloating, depletions, even cutting water like at the beginning of the week and stuff. It blows my mind a little bit. I mean, maybe there's specific scenarios where you might want to manipulate some of that, but if you're cutting out water a week into your show, I'm like, oh, It's crazy. I don't cut my water at all. I don't, except for on show day. Obviously, I'm not going to drink a gallon of water before going on stage. Otherwise, I'll look like I'm pregnant with water.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be silly. We want to keep the waistline very small. And that's how I do it. But there are some maybe scenarios where you would cut a little bit. But I just find that some of these peak weeks are very extreme.
Yeah.
And the way they play around with sodium, and I don't cut sodium either, by the way, but I see girls playing with sodium too, like take it away, then put a whole bunch in, and then take it away, then cut the water at this point, and then super like, it's kind of like a hit or miss strategy, and maybe it worked for them once, and then they try to do it again, and I just feel like it's especially with bikini, and let me just emphasize, I'm referring to bikini only. It shouldn't have to get to that point. You should just kind of roll into the show looking fresh and rested and not have to do all these crazy peak week things. And you know what I mean? Maybe some carb loading, a little bit of touch of carbs, and it doesn't have to be this crazy like strategy, I still see it happening. So I don't know if you want to touch on that a bit.
So a couple things with so I guess there's a few things in there. So first one we can go into is the depletion workout. I think that's a good one to go into first.
Oh, I meant more like water, but depleting water. But we can talk about workouts if you want.
Okay, we'll go into the water first.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, that wasn't clear. But yeah, I meant like depleting sodium, adding it, doing that, playing around with
manipulation, sodium manipulation. Yeah, the water one is a common one that you see in bikini too, which is still kind of surprises me because bikini girls don't have that much muscle, so you don't have that much room to cut water. So let's go into like the typical bikini water cutting protocol. What I find common is being that people start off at 1.5 gallons on Monday, and then they cut it in half, and they go to the point, I guess it would be 0.75 or something. I don't do this. I'm running off the top of my head without the numbers. Then they go to half of that on Tuesday. Then they go to half of that on Wednesday, and then half of that on Thursday, and then half of that on Friday, which is like, it's getting pretty minimal at this point. It goes half, all the way down. So it's like, I mean, it's pretty low. I've seen some of these girls and I'm like, they're like, yeah, I'm just so thirsty. And I'm like, why? And then they look like more sucked down too. So let's go, like, what are the cause and effect benefits of it, right? So yeah, you're cutting your water, and will you get a little bit tighter when you cut all the water out of your like you're fully dehydrated? You might get a little tighter. You will, but there's an expense for it. Remember, like I said, there's never a juice without a squeeze, right? So what's the squeeze? Ashley likes that. You like that? So what's the squeeze, right? So the effort part of it, what are you losing from it? So you got to understand that, like, people are like, oh, you're made of, there's this guy on my hockey team a long time ago. And it was like one of the funniest comments because he's such a smart ass. The coach is like, we got to show them what we're made of. And he goes, 70% water.
That's funny.
It always stuck with me, right? When he's, I don't know the actual percentages, but he's right? So you are a lot of water. You're made of a lot of water, especially muscle cells, right? So when you cut water, and that's the thing, people think that you can cut water from like just under the skin, in between the skin and the muscle. It'll even be marketed that way as like when you look at like diuretics. You look at, the over-the-counter diuretics, like I don't want to give any names that are doing this because I don't know anything on top of my head. But for example, like one of the most popular ones is Expel. I don't know if they've ever advertised like this or not, so it's not pertaining to them. But you'll see some advertisements, marketing things like that, where they'll like show like the skin, and then they'll show this like river of water, and then they'll show the muscle, and then they'll show the next example would be the skin and no water and just the muscle, like that's happening. I don't know if they still do that.
Where you can pick and choose where you want to lose the water from.
Yeah, let's just get rid of the river of water.
I got a river underneath this.
I wonder if there's like bacteria, just like fishing and like catching. What did you catch? I caught an amino acid today. That got one this big. Taking pictures and like the whole little thing going on over there. So you like that? Yes. What if when you cut water, they're like, oh, there's a drought going on. We're gonna start housing prices drop. Anyway, so with the with that, so whenever you lose water, you're gonna lose it from everywhere. You can't pick and choose where the water comes from. Okay, so you have So you have fluid inside the muscle cells. You have water inside the muscle cells. You have fluid in between the muscle cells. Okay, so interstitial fluids, intercellular fluids, right? So because you're cutting water, you can't just lose the water in between muscle cells. I wish there was a way to do that. If there was a way to do that, I would say absolutely go after it. Try to find a way to do that. But there's not a way to do that. The water is going to stay. If you're going to cut, let's say 50% of the water out of your body, you're going to lose that number in proportion out of the muscle cell and the fluid in between the cells. So you can get a little bit tighter by losing that, but it comes at a very big expense. Now, you will see bodybuilders do it at the highest level. Now, you got to understand they have, some of these guys, you look at like a guy like Big Ram, he's got like 270 pounds on stage or whatever he is. If he loses, some fullness on stage, no big deal. The guy's got, he's got a brick house full of muscle, right? You lose a couple bricks off that guy, who cares, right? It's not a big deal. For him, the juice is worth the squeeze, right? For a bikini girl who barely has enough muscle, barely has enough glute fullness, not really worth it. Now, if a bikini girl is super jacked and she has a ton of muscle, maybe too much muscle, and she's having a problem nailing her conditioning, maybe in that scenario, it might be a decent idea. But I would say a vast majority of bikini girls, especially bikini these days with how muscular they are, shouldn't be doing that because they're going to sacrifice some fullness for a little bit of conditioning. You're going to sacrifice a lot of fullness for a little bit of conditioning.
Right.
And even then, sometimes it goes backwards. Sometimes you look softer.
Yeah, because you don't got the pop.
You got no pop.
You need the pop.
Got
you
no
don't want to lose the pop. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What he just said. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next one. And this is I'm just going to combine these two since they kind of both relate to each other. So let's talk a little bit about fasted cardio. It burns so much more fat to do it fasted than if you have a meal. And then also the second portion to that is also the idea that cardio itself prevents you from gaining muscle. You can't put on any muscle and do cardio at the same time. What?
Yeah.
What? So with the fasted cardio, I think it's kind of like maybe one of the half truths, right? Like there could be an argument for it, but under certain scenarios. So the biggest thing I think that would, I guess, help with that is you're basically, when you're not eating before cardio, you're just pushing back your food window, which maybe by the end of the day, it makes less calories overall in that daily 24-hour period. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you're basically just pushing it back rather than just eating beforehand. But I will say I don't do fasted cardio. I mean, only on very rare occasions when I wake up and I'm not hungry and I'm just like, I could just do cardio. Then, yeah, I don't think you need to purposely eat before cardio. But then again, if you're hungry, just eat. And it's just you're pushing back the food window, kind of like making it more of, but you could also do that just with regular fasting too. Yeah. Pushing back the food window.
And actually you nailed on a topic that's separate of this topic, but it's a smart one that you did. You just, I don't know if you did it on purpose, but that's the same with any diet. You know? Any diet, the only difference is how many net calories you're doing. Yeah. So if you do like a fasted diet, like you said, where you're fasting for 12 hours, well, you're just making it easier to stick to your diet during the 12 hours that you are eating. You'll generally eat less food. So you restrict calories because you're restricting it from half the day. So it becomes easier for some people to do it that way. It's the same thing with like a low carb diet. No, you're just actually just eliminating carbs and netting less total calories. So you're getting in it, finding way to restrict calories through a different means. So all the diets pretty much have the same net outcome, restriction calories, right? So, but anyway, with your fasted cardio one, so as of yet, there has been nothing to prove that fasted cardio works better. Now, I will say this is a different scenario for like the extreme bodybuilders, but it would pretty much never fall into the bikini category. Mm-hmm. And the reason is that like extreme bodybuilders and extreme things that were here's the big, like one of the big issues that like people don't talk about is that when extreme bodybuilders are doing things that bikini girls aren't doing, and I'm talking like performance enhancers and stuff, there are going to be things that will change in that scenario, right? When these bodybuilders are doing certain things. So yeah, a bodybuilder doing 3 hours of cardio a day and then doing it fasted, he might have a benefit to it because he's running so many different things that is going to help him keep the muscle and also help him burn more fat, that it might make sense for him to go in this extreme calorie diet. It may make sense for him to go fasted because he can take things to free up fat to use it during workouts. But bikini girls aren't going that route. Like they're not, that's just not a bikini thing. You know, we're talking extreme superhuman people doing it. And then all of a sudden what happens is these bodybuilders become coaches and then they say, oh, do it this way. And then, but it doesn't make, it's not the same thing because you're essentially talking about a superhuman versus a regular human in bikini. And so those things, they don't, so you have to understand, where does it come from first? You got to ask the why, right? It's a Socrates, ask why. So that's where the first part comes. So is there a benefit with those guys doing it? If they're doing that chemistry side of it, yes. Is there a benefit with the average person doing it? Then the answer to that would be there is nothing proven at this point that it would be of benefit to do it that way. Fasted cardio has been studied, and there's been multiple studies on it, and there's been shown to little to no benefit, but potential of little, yes, but little to no benefit. So here's the problem that you run into is that you have to ask yourself two questions. You can't just ask, do you burn more fat during cardio in the same scenario, doing it fasted, right? You have to also ask yourself, how much is performance decreased with being fasted, and therefore how much net calories do I burn from fat more in both scenarios of working harder with calories or working less hard without calories? Which one at the end has net more calories burned from fat, right? So it's a very multi-layered question, and I don't know if you'll ever come to a full conclusion on it, because when we look at how many calories you burn from fat, like actually, your highest percentage of calories burned from fat is actually during sleep. So when you're moving at your absolute slowest, you burn the highest amount of calories from fat. So anytime you start increasing your workload, you're burning less calories from fat because your body can't use fat as rapidly, right? So that's where the argument comes in of like HIIT versus steady state cardio and which one burns more fat. Well, technically, anytime you move slower, you're going to burn more fat. So steady state would be the scenario for that in terms of percentage of calories, but which one burns more calories versus work effort versus now how much fat's used. It's a whole thing. It's not just like so simple as black. It's not so black and white. So that's a hard one to fully figure out. But here's the thing. What I will say is the reason that people do fasted cardio, this is the logic behind it. Okay, you're depleted down in the morning. All of your glycogen stores are empty. And so when you do fasted cardio, your body has to use fat because there's no other available energy. So it has to use whatever's left, right? Well, here's the problem with that. You're not depleted down. Your glycogen stores aren't empty. In order for you to empty all your glycogen stores, we're talking a very long time of dieting, more so than one night. Believe me, if you are as inefficient as basically because what they're saying is basically you have zero energy available that's stored by morning time in your muscle. All you have is fat by the time you wake up. Can you imagine humans being that inefficient and surviving this long? It's no way. It just doesn't work that way. So yes, you're fasted in terms of your food that you ate, but you're not fasted in terms of the glycogen and glucose that's available in your body by the time you wake up. You still are using that energy. Like you're still going through it. Now, maybe later on in prep, you're more depleted at certain points than others, and you're kind of technically more in that scenario, more fasted than you would be in other scenarios if we're talking about actual storage of glycogen, not just food consumption. But it's not as simple as like, oh, I just didn't eat since 8 o'clock and now it's 8 o'clock again and now I'm just burning pure fat. Like I wish that was the case, right? You're designed to live, and survive with periods of not eating. We're still that thing. And so we have to look at, evolution. And I always go to the evolution side of things too, is, 100 years ago, food wasn't as available as it is now. If you lived in the mountains, 100 years ago, you might go a few days without eating food. You might have to chase I don't know, what do you chase back then? A cheetah for food? What do you chase? What do you have? A lion? A lion for food? I don't know. No, the mountain lion. You can Arthur. Don't you judge me.
Guess where you're located at.
A buffalo or elk, right? I've eaten lion. Mountain lion. I've eaten mountain lion. I didn't like it. So it is a thing. But you might have to chase one for 4 or 5 days, right, before you can actually get it. So you imagine if we needed a food every single day from the beginning of time till now, considering weather scenarios and rain scenarios and just food scenarios, of us just not having anything besides our fat to work off of, we wouldn't be here. So just understand that we're not evolved to the conveniences of today as of yet. Hopefully we never will be. They do think we're doing that. You know that? Isn't that funny? They think that we're getting softer with less muscle because of just of natural evolution of conveniences of life.
Because now, you can mate with somebody that doesn't necessarily need to prove themselves to fetch food in the wild.
Isn't that...
So it's like, yeah, you're soft, whatever, you'll do, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas like you would typically mate with like the best of the best, the survivors. And now it's just like, well, their Instagram photo's cute, so whatever, this will do.
What's funny is there's this guy who studies chimps. And I mean, when I'm working out, all I listen to is these off topic things. Where there's this guy who studies chimps, and he studies like the hierarchy of chimps, right? And like how, and he relates, it's like the closest thing to us. And he studied that exact thing, like in 2 parts, which was how women typically like a bad boy, right? But that's still like, it's still in our like genetic code where the girls want the like biggest, toughest bad boy guy in like their younger years before they like learn a little bit, right? Because earlier in life, they had to find that guy because that was the guy that would lead the pack. That was the guy that would have the most food. He would be the one hunting. He would lead everyone. And then he would get what he needed. And then he would give the rest to whoever the people were, like that followed him, right? So it was like the way of finding your like for survival, right? You always wanted the biggest, baddest guy. It was funny, but so they started studying chimps, and then chimps had the same type of thing, a hierarchy through dominance. And the dominant chimp would only lead the pack for very short periods of time, but he would always lead the pack. So the dominant chimp would lead these packs for very short periods of time, but then he would come to a very brutal ending of his reign. What would happen is the new chimp would fight him for power, right? Or like a younger chimp would fight him for power, and then just completely, he'd die through force. And sometimes it would be 2-on-1 because they didn't like this chimp. But then once in a while, what would happen with these chimps is like a weaker chimp that was nicer and kinder and more friendly and like a better just overall leader would lead the chimps through would lead the chimps through just like kindness and just like strength but not power, right? And he would lead for a very long period of time, and no one would ever try to dethrone him. And the chimps that were stronger than him would actually protect him, even though keeping him the leader, which went against everything that everyone thought about chimps, right? Mm-hmm. So, and they would lead basically for the eternity of their life before that was passed down, and they would never come to that brutal ending, right? Isn't that kind of crazy?
That is crazy.
I don't know what we got in that topic, but isn't that kind of interesting? It's an interesting topic. I like that stuff. I study that stuff. It's fun. Anyway, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
It's my podcast. I'll do what I want.
Exactly.
Unless Ashley, it's 50-50. It's Ashley's podcast, so she never shuts me up, though.
I approve. So the other part of that question would be cardio prevents you from gaining muscle. They think, can't do cardio. I don't want to ruin my gains. Oh my gosh. I don't want a gain to be lost.
That is a tough one to go into because
it's like a half truth.
Yeah, there is a point where you will cross. It's difficult. That's a difficult one. There is a point,
which by the way, kind of also touches base with our previous thing that how we went into. You're gonna have to cut, and you're gonna probably lose maybe a little bit of muscle because you have to cut faster than what you would have if you would have kept your off season more in check. Kind of goes into it a little bit. They kind of overlap there a little bit, because cardio is part of losing the weight.
That's pretty good.
So
it's a callback.
Because I always say too is like, I don't like to do cardio sometimes because for me, sometimes I put all my energy into cardio and then maybe the weights suffer a little bit because I'm like, wow, I just killed my cardio. But yeah, go ahead, Adam.
That was good. That was a good callback. In comedy, they would call that a callback. That's good. Okay. Yeah, good memory. Okay. Good stuff. So so there is a point, right? And the thing is, you have to look at, and it's not necessarily like just muscle wasting that occurs, right? It's not just muscle wasting. It's actually performance based, probably more than anything. I don't want to go on a limb and say for sure, because I don't know a study that would reference that, but it's more performance based. So you're going to, and this is something you guys need to understand, you're going to look however you train, okay? So just anytime you're doing something, think, do I want to look like this training does for me, okay? So if you're like, I'm a bikini competitor, but I want to lift like a power lifter. Okay, cool, but you're going to look more like a power lifter the more you do that, okay? There's no way around that. However you want to look, you need to train. So the more you start doing marathon type cardio, the more you're going to look like a marathon runner, okay? So there's a certain point where there's a give and take where it's like, okay, no, I won't look like that because I'm not doing that. But understand, it's not because you're losing muscle on purpose or anything like that. It's because it's performance-based. Your body's going to respond how you train it. So if all of a sudden you start training for long distance, endurance-based sports, how is that best performed? Well, it's best performed with more red muscle fiber that can take in oxygen for long periods of time and not be, I guess I shouldn't say more red muscle fiber, but for taking in long periods of oxygen and performing for long endurance periods of time, right? So now what happens? Well, you have the white muscle fiber too, which is big and strong and explosive, which weighs you down during running and is very, very bad at consuming oxygen. Look at someone who is in the NFL, like a lineman on the NFL, when they explode off the line, I mean, they're just, they can move a car. These guys are so powerful, right? Just explode off and like move a car a few inches. But they can only do that for like a few seconds, and then they're gassed. The next set, the next down, they're like, right? They're just super heavy. But if you look at a marathon runner and you put them in that same position, they wouldn't be able to stop the guy from getting the quarterback because they're not designed that way. But they could do it all day. they could do it all day long, right? So red muscle fiber, long periods of time, good at consuming oxygen. But because it's performance-based, you can't have a lot of it because you need to, it weighs you down. And if you weigh a lot and you have a lot of muscle fiber unnecessarily that needs oxygen, well, then it's going to hinder your performance. And remember, when you do very, very long distance stuff, you're training for performance. So there will be a give and take on that. Now, at what point does that reach, that give and take? I don't know for certain. I imagine it's different per person. I imagine if someone was primarily white muscle fiber based, their starting point for running into that window of training for endurance would be sooner than someone who was more red muscle fiber based, right? So I don't know how to answer that specifically. I will say that I try to never, ever have a client do more than an hour of cardio. Generally, 80% or more of them are doing less than 45 minutes for a show. And just for that reasoning. And I want to give them as much time available in their day without crushing them and that too. So there's my take on that. I would say 90% science based on that too. Wow. There's some room for interpretation on that. So
there you go. But don't you dare use that as an excuse because you don't want to do cardio. Sorry, coach, I don't want to ruin my gains.
I'm going to use
that. You gave me 2 cardio sessions this week, Adam. I can't because I don't want to lose any of my gains.
Every morning I wake up myself. I said, no, Adam, you don't want to do cardio because you want to be more white muscle fiber. And I have to fight it, and I have to fight this reason to not do cardio every day.
It's like, darn it, and I really wanted to do it.
I really wanted to do it today, too, but I just didn't want to train that damn red muscle fiber.
So there you go. Stop with the excuses.
I never make an excuse on that. I just stick to it. Dedication.
Oh, my goodness. So do we have any questions from our lovely viewers right now?
Let's see.
Just thought I'd check in to be sure.
Let's see how many of them are here asking questions and how many of them are lovely too. I'm going to say 90%.
Some of them are just weird people online saying nice boobs or something. Referring to you.
I was going to say thank you. I've been working out. I appreciate
clearly.
it. Yes.
That's that you said that's your best muscle group.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's the easiest one for me.
There you go.
All right. But the arms are like noodles. I'm built like SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh.
I know. It's unfortunate.
I don't see noodles.
I like SpongeBob, though. He's cool.
He's great.
He's a fun guy. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. No, you know what? The questions really haven't came in. I've been weak on the...
Oh, my goodness. You guys need to step up your game.
Usually you're getting like 400 or 500 like viewers per like little podcast thing we do here on Instagram.
I guess
total.
they're just really shy.
Really shy. There was one earlier on, and I wish
we could like pin them so we could come back to them later, because it's like if you don't see them right away, and then if we're in the middle of talking, you can't.
Yeah. There's one here that says she heard one the other day. It said only fats and protein for breakfast, carbs just around training, and I don't think that that's really like a bodybuilder myth per se, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, to be honest. I mean, it just depends on the person. So you have to understand carbohydrates are not essential. So you have fats that are essential, you have amino acids that are essential proteins, essential fats, right? Things like that. But there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. And that means you don't need carbohydrates. Your body can make carbohydrates. So if there's no need to consume them. Now, is it not optimal to have carbohydrates? It's not optimal to not have carbohydrates. That's an easy energy source. So I would say if I can give someone carbohydrates, then I definitely will. But I have to hit the essentials first. I have to hit the essential amount of protein. For building muscle, I have to overshoot protein a little bit just to make sure I can keep muscle during a hard prep and harder calories during the ends of prep. I have to make sure that there's enough fats for the hormones. So I have to, and make sure they're staying healthy in their hair and all that too. So we have to hit these like minimum targets. Now the minimum targets aren't that high for fats. They're not that high for even proteins, but those are going to take priority for sure. So if at the end of a diet and I have, let's say, 100-pound bikini competitor, which there are out there, there's some that are like 411, 410. Like, when you hear these people, they're like, oh, I had 1,200 calorie diet, it was miserable. Well, were you 5'10", 140 pounds on stage, or do you have 1,200 calories and you're 4'11", 95 pounds on stage? 1,200 calories isn't that low for someone who's 95 pounds. It's pretty decent amount of calories.
Right. I think that the food pyramid era screwed everyone up because they think 2,000 is like the based on a 2,000 calorie diet kind of thing. Like, maybe if you're a dude that's,
Yeah, I think those were based on like 100. It was like a 150-pound dude. Is actually how it was. Yeah,
it's
so
not the same when you're a little bikini girl,
So yeah, I mean, you don't really need carbohydrates, and because you don't need carbohydrates, putting them around areas where you're going to use energy the most isn't a bad idea. I do that sometimes too. If someone likes carbohydrates more than fats and they feel more, I mean, I highly doubt anyone would feel more satiated with carbohydrates than fats, though. Usually you feel a lot more full with fats than you do with carbohydrates. I'll exchange them if someone says, I'd rather have oatmeal than in the morning than some fats. I'll be like, all right, we'll do oatmeal then. It's fine. Now, I will say, if you're looking at macronutrients in terms of storing fat is the easiest thing to store as fat. So the very, very high percentage of fat can be stored as fat. So out of 100 calories from fat, it's either 96 or 98 calories out of 100 can be stored as fat, like in terms of the conversion process to actual stored fat. Now, when you look at like proteins and you look at carbohydrates, you're in the 70 calories per 100, in the 70s range. Like I think it's like 72 and 78 or something like that. Now that's obviously is going to be a big difference between people, and that's like the estimated margins that I'm remembering off the top of my head too. But out of all the macronutrients, protein is the hardest to convert and store as fat. Carbs are the second hardest, and fats are the easiest. So if I were cutting something, I would pretty much cut fats. If someone was in like a caloric surplus or close to it, or just had they're just stored body fat a little easier. So there's a lot of ways to create a diet. In the end, how we talked about earlier, like caloric restriction is really that's gonna be the difference. But doing carbs around the diet, especially when you haven't had any carbs at all, it's not actually a bad thing, I don't think. But I don't think it's definitely not a need. You don't. It's if he's saying you need to do it this way, that's definitely false. But it's not necessarily a bad way to lay out a diet for sure.
Mm-hmm. Heck yeah. That's
so
what's up.
Anyway,
We got another one?
Yeah, there's a few. This one says, thank God carbs aren't essential. I do my best on low carb, under 30 to 50.
Yeah.
Some people are like, some people just like it that way too. I've had some people, and I always find that athletes you kind of know, like just, you naturally eat the way your body performs best, I think. When I used to work for 24 Hour Fitness, like a long time ago, there used to be this like test that you would give your clients. It was like 100-question test. And it was like these weird questions. And it said, like an example would be like, steak for breakfast sounds good to me, or like sounds terrible to me, right? Something like that. And then they would answer these questions, and it would kind of tell you, oh, this person eats more protein, like they like more protein than this, right?
Yeah, even in like, I agree.
So you can I think you kind of naturally find your way. You kind of find your sport too, I've found too. You don't really find, like a guy like me would never do long distance running. Like I'd be like, oh, that sounds terrible. I wouldn't even think about it, right?
Right.
But I think there's guys out there who like long distance running, and they're like, oh, that sounds great. Maybe I'll try that. I think you're just kind of like built certain ways, and you're like, same thing with food.
Totes.
Okay, so here's one. It says, so if you don't need a large bulk and you need to gain muscle for bikini, do you just do a small surplus? The answer to that, pretty much, yeah. I mean, I guess we can go over another myth. This will be maybe our last one. It kind of brought up another question, right? So can you gain muscle in a caloric deficit? Yes, you can. You can absolutely gain muscle in a caloric deficit. So there's some theories, and there's going to be people that'll argue this, and it's called nutrient partitioning. You're getting into some really deep nutrition talk here, but basically, the question is how it works, like internally, is can you ingest calories in a deficit and still use those calories to build muscle, and then your body have a net negative calorie balance and still lose fat, right? And that sounds, from everything we've learned and everything we've been taught over the years, that would sound no. You would say no to that. You can't, and it's a simple blanket statement. You can't build muscle in a deficit. You need to be in a surplus to gain. That's always been the thing. Personal training schools, like nutrition schools, all that would always say you need to be in a surplus to gain. Well, here's the problem is that, again, we're not these like creatures that have been designed based on how we're eating now with the convenience of food. So a lot of times we had to perform in scenarios where we didn't have food available. You know, you had to still work. Like, for example, like if you looked at like, you know, Greece and stuff like that, like back in the days, and they had a whole bunch of slaves in Greece and all these like Egypt and whatnot. Well, those people still had to do a lot of work, but they weren't eating that much food, right? So how did they build muscle all that during that time? You have to look at those scenarios. Because that actually happened. So what happens is if you imply a demand on a muscle, requiring it to be perform better the next time, and you're not eating enough food, well, yes, you can actually lose fat still from the energy need of the day and still use the calories that you're eating to be stored as new synthesized skeletal muscle to help you perform better. So the question really becomes, can you create the demand for that in the gym while in a deficit? Can you work out hard enough to create that demand while being in a caloric deficit? And that's a whole nother question, right? Do you have what it takes to do that? So I've seen it I've seen it many, many times. I mean, you could look at Ashley as an example of that. She's built a good amount of muscle while in a caloric deficit. Look at her glutes 4 years ago. Look at her glutes now. She's been pretty much in a deficit, like, or running at maintenance, at highest at maintenance. And this is the first like real off season we've had, which is like 6 weeks let's be realistic. In 108 weeks, we've had 6 weeks of gaining, maybe an off week here or there for vacation, but and even then she's pretty clean. So, she's put on a significant amount more muscle, and that's just an argument right there that's going to debunk whoever's saying you can't do that. So no, you don't need to be in a surplus. I think that you gaining muscle, when we're talking about the net muscle gain from show to show, I think that the best scenario is a very slight surplus to somewhere between maintenance to a very slight surplus and working hard, because you're not going to gain that much muscle, period. Especially if you're like a bikini competitor and you're a natural girl, you're going to probably put on 1 pound of muscle every 45, 50 days. So that's like the true net of that. And that's a pretty good year if you did that, because that means you put on like 7 pounds in a year. If you did that and you still stayed lean the whole time, that sounds a lot better to me than putting on 20 pounds of fluff, netting, 5 pounds at the end of the year. I don't know. To me, it just sounds like a better scenario. So there you go. I guess that was I don't know if sometimes I go, those ones are so technical. It's like you almost like need to write down like what phase that you're in when you're talking about it.
Makes sense.
But hopefully that made sense. Okay, cool. Well, I guess with that, is that it, Ashley?
Yeah, we're definitely only halfway through the list. I think we should do a part 2. What do you think?
Part 2? Let's do it.
Yeah, we're
fun.
halfway. We're halfway.
These ones I talk a lot though, so I don't want to just keep you here. I feel bad sometimes. I talk so much.
Keep you here, like
you're like asking a question that I over talk on these ones.
No,
we need more
it's okay.
Okay, all right. We need more Ashley.
No, hey, I know my place in life. You know what I'm saying? I feel like there's been a few podcasts where I talked more
bikini.
You.
More bikini based. We'll do we'll do it one more like this, and then we'll do one that's like more bikini, less science. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. Actually, since we're gonna do another one, keep those questions coming in. Maybe you can text me those questions.
Put it underneath the video that we're here too.
Or you can DM them to me or to Ashley, and we will screenshot them and maybe
text you where.
What is that number? 303. I should know that. I've had it for like 2 years.
Doesn't everyone have Adam's phone number? Oh my God.
303-53.
Oh,
536
let's just put it in the description. We will put it in the description.
It's like a text. It's like a text line. I got it. I'll put it in there.
So it's
pretty bad. I can't remember these numbers. Yeah, it's not my real number. So. But it is really me when I get back to them.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I really do get back to almost all those, unless they're like people give me their whole diet in like weeks. I'm in week 4. Is this many calories? That's my workout. I'm like, not your trainer.
Yeah. We don't want to be stepping on toes.
Just basic question. Yeah. So anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you